San Diego Global Knowledge University.
As you know, my name is Lydia Ramirez. I'm SDGKU's Human Resources Coordinator. Thank you for your participation on our training seminar today presented by Dr. Caroline Cárdenas on the topic of play and joy, which is part of your 2023 Professional Development Plan at SDGKU. We'll be recording the session with the consent of Caroline in order to make it available to all of you for further review and study in order to maximize your learning on this relevant topic for all of us. I will now ask our SDGKU President, Dr. Miguel Cárdenas, to participate with his introductory remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you all for taking a little bit of your very busy time to be with us. We all know that it's tough to take some time off to do a seminar like this, but the topics are really important, and particularly this one. I will forego the introduction in terms of Caroline's extensive resume, because we've done it before, we presented that before. I just would like to say that it is particularly interesting that, again, this topic is the centerpiece of her dissertation. So she has particular expertise. I don't think there's anyone on earth that has more expertise than she has. And this is, in fact, confirmed by many of the authors and the famous people that have published in that field. They all recognize Caroline as a true expert. So we're blessed with that. And not only that, but for us, we're under stress all the time. Small schools and small companies like us are always under stress. We need a positive, strategy that will not, talk about following orders or, doing less work or more work. But an activity that we can, in fact, incorporate at any time in our workplace, and of course, certainly in our lives. So I really want to thank you once again, Caroline, for presenting this difficult topic. But I think it is a secret weapon for our success and welfare, because we all need play and certainly joy. So with that, Caroline, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Again, so excited to be here with all of you. I really enjoy offering these seminars to San Diego Global Knowledge University staff and faculty. For those of you who don't have your video enabled, if you're in a safe place, if you're not driving, and if you're able to, this seminar is different than a lecture, right? As we spoke about last time. That lectures is I'm speaking to or at you, right? Whereas in seminars are interactive, and it's important for me as a facilitator of the seminar and presenter of the seminar that I see your faces, because that's important for me. And it's also important for the group as we open up our, what we call our virtual circle, right? As we're allowed to connect with each other utilizing technology at a distance, it really, it requires us to imagine and be creative about ways in which we can extend ourselves a bit more in terms of human connection when we are utilizing the tool of technology. Never to really replace, right, the being in person with one another. So as Dr. Miguel Cárdenas Sr. and Lydia presented at this moment.
I think we're losing your connection, Caroline.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, now you're okay.
Good.
Now you're okay.
Okay, hopefully that doesn't continue to happen. But as Dr. Cárdenas and Lydia have, said, play is something that's near and dear to my heart. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. And also behind me, you'll see that this is my doctoral dissertation, and I wrote my dissertation on the concept of play, or the phenomenon of play, and what that is, and also how we can utilize play for adults in helping to restore compassion among helping professionals who are experiencing compassion fatigue. But for today, we're going to talk about play and joy as the secret formula for success and well-being. And I think it's such a really important topic at this point, in particular because we've all worked so hard this last year in 2023. And we're rounding out the year. This is the last seminar for 2023. So I think it's a really great topic to dive into collectively and really be able to reflect on why play matters, why it's significant, and why it's something that's really truly valuable in our lives in terms of well-being and success. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. I always kind of come up with, there we go. And then you all let me know if you're able to see that. Everybody give me a thumbs up if you can see it okay. Yeah? Wonderful. All right. And then I'm going to kind of move things over here so that I can see. Okay, wonderful. All right, so play and joy, the secret formula for success and well-being. My name is Dr. Cárdenas, and I'm the counselor and advisor at San Diego Global Knowledge University. So our objectives today would be to review statistics and contributing factors of unhappiness in the workplace. We're going to define culture, and we'll talk a little bit about why I weave that in today's seminar. We're going to explore various descriptions of the concept of play through various play scholars, review the hallmarks of play, explore the 7 play properties, 6 play elements, and 5 play characteristics. We're going to do a quick review again on affect theory because we are going to be talking about joy and the difference between joy and happiness. We're going to explore the primary emotion system within this big word is affective neuroscience. Don't be intimidated by it. I'll describe that a bit more. And then review the contributing factors and consequences of play deprivation, which is something really important to pay attention to, in particular to our culture and generations. And we're going to explore the benefits of play, the benefits of the imagination, define well-being and success, and we're going to offer a moment of reflection and a moment of questions. So looking at the time here, it's about 1:15 right now, so we'll go ahead and get started. So I just would like to ask everybody at this moment, just take a moment to close your eyes. There's nothing to do here. We're disconnecting from our phones and from anything that's asking us to multitask. I'm inviting you to be present here in this virtual circle. It's going to go by very fast. And so being present is something that it's a gift that we can offer to ourselves and one another. So as you're closing your eyes here, take a few deep breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Noticing how your body is feeling, how you're feeling emotionally. Just think back to when you were about 7 or 8 years old. Think back to a place where you were fully engaged in a state of play. What form of play are you engaging with? Are you with friends, or are you engaged in solo play? Are you running around, or are you imagining? You might be drawing, coloring, dancing, maybe riding a bike. Something that is allowing you to feel utter joy. You might be playing with dolls or cars. Thinking back, keeping your eyes closed, and just noticing how you're feeling when you're thinking back to the 7, 8-year-old self that is in a state of play. You might be at the playground, maybe at the beach, you're in a forest or a jungle, maybe you're at a park. So thinking back to this place of pure and utter freedom, this wondrous child that is you, immersed in the depths of your imagination, safe and filled with glee. Continue to take a deep breath in through here. Notice what you're doing while playing, and notice how you feel. Taking one more big deep breath in. To look deeply at play and to place it in evolutionary, biological, cultural, and contemporary context is to partially answer the question, what really does it mean to be fully human? And on the inhale, slowly opening up the eyes, arriving back in our virtual circle. Just taking notice of this image here of these children. What do you notice in their faces? What do you notice in their body language? You know, about 80% of how we communicate is through body language. What do you see in their eyes? And then how does it make you feel when you see that? So Isabel Benheck, field ethnologist and primatologist, says play is foundational for bonding relationships and fostering tolerance. It's where we learn to trust and where we learn about the rules of the game. Play increases creativity and resilience, and it's all about the generation of diversity. Diversity of interactions, diversity of behaviors, and diversity of connections. And I know that diversity is something that Dr. Miguel Cárdenas Sr. champions very much at San Diego Global Knowledge University, both within the staff and faculty and within the student body. So let's talk about unhappiness in the workplace, because it's kind of a thing. You know, it's a little bit of an elephant in the room that nobody really talks about. So despite fears of recession, the U.S. remains in the midst of the Great Resignation, with job dissatisfaction at an all-time high. The U.S. Department of Labor issued data in July 2022 confirming that the job market continues to be characterized by ample job opportunities and high levels of voluntary resignation. You know, one example of that is the post-COVID era, lots of nurses leaving the medical profession. People are quiet quitting. People are, you know, deciding, hey, I'm unhappy in this situation, I'm out of here. And it's revealing that after 2 years or 3 years since the pandemic first began, millions of workers continue to leave their jobs each month. Gallup polling, in its recently released State of Global Workplace in 2022 report, found that along with dissatisfaction, workers are experiencing staggering rates of both disengagement and unhappiness. 60% of people reported being emotionally detached at work and 19% as being miserable. 33% reported feeling engaged, which is even lower than 2020. In the US specifically, 50% of, let me go back. There we go. In the US specifically, 50% of workers reported feeling stressed at their jobs on a daily basis, 41% being worried, and 22% as sad, 18% as angry. So what really matters is how employees experience their work. That is, how they are managed, coached, and treated. Essentially, the workplace culture. And I can tell you, working as a nurse in the hospital through various healthcare institutions throughout the United States, workplace culture, you have the institutional culture, and then you have the sort of cultures or the silos that we create within those spaces or those departments. So contributing factors of unhappiness in the workplace. The number one reported cause of dissatisfaction with the job experience is characterized as unfair treatment at work, the lack of culture that emphasizes respect, community, and contribution acknowledgement. This includes mistreatment by coworkers, inconsistent compensation, and corporate policies to biases and favoritism. Job dissatisfaction and burnout correlate most highly with unmanageable workloads, unclear communication from managers, lack of manager support, and unreasonable time pressures. So workplace engagement and satisfaction, the importance of focusing on workplace engagement and satisfaction is not only important for employee well-being and for the bottom line. Business units with engaged workers have 23% higher profit compared with business units with miserable workers. Employees who are not engaged or who are actively disengaged cost the world $7.8 trillion in lost productivity, equal to 11% of global GDP. Additionally, teams with satisfied employees see significantly less turnover and absenteeism, with higher rates of both employee and customer loyalty. The bottom line is that workers are not happy nor engaged. Remote work options and schedule flexibility, although important and valuable to many workers, are not enough to keep employees engaged and satisfied. It is key for companies and institutions to create a culture of job satisfaction. So now you're getting to why we're talking about culture. So Dr. Stuart Brown, a buddy of mine, who's the founder of the National Institute for Play, he's a psychiatrist, and he also conducted a study in the 1960s on mass murderers who were in prison. And he wanted to see what was this common theme that was going on in these mass murderers that were imprisoned. And what he noticed with the funding that he got from this research, he noticed a common theme that he said to me was staring you right in the face. And he said that they were mostly play deprived as children. And I think that that's something to pay attention to. He says that the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. And I think that that is something to really pay attention to. So culture. Within the field of psychology, culture is distinctive customs, values, beliefs, knowledge, art, and language of a society or a community. These values and concepts are passed on from generation to generation, and they are the basis for everyday behaviors and practices. So they sort of give us this scaffolding or this structure of social norms and ways, and we can conduct ourselves based on the cultural values and beliefs and customs. Again, we can have that in our own personal culture within our family, but also something to pay attention to and think about is, and in particular, reflect on the development of workplace culture again. So Johan Huizinga, he's a Dutch cultural historian, founder of modern cultural history. He says, play is older than culture. For culture, however, inadequately defined, always presupposes human society, and animals have not waited for man to teach them their playing. So believe it or not, animals play in the wild, and there are sort of body signals that they give off to one another, where they step into sort of this dance of play. Play is a free activity. This is his sort of description of play. He says, play is a free activity standing quite consciously outside ordinary life as being not serious, but at the same time absorbing the player intensely and utterly. And something that I really want to emphasize here is there's no singular definition of what play is. It's a little bit like quantum physics. The further that you feel like you can define play, the further you're going away from it. So there is no one singular definition. We sort of can kind of understand play when we see it on the playground and when we see it in children. But when we try to harness it and say that play is this for our social development or just this one particular avenue, we're harnessing it too much, and then it makes us move further away from it. So that's what's so interesting about play too. Again, notice the body language, the eyes, you know, the rise and the potential of joy. So it's important to understand, okay, well, if we want to understand play, then what play is not? And then Farah, I'm wondering if you could mute your, thank you. Yeah. So play is not a competitive sport. Although when we see people playing sports, we think, oh yeah, that's play in our postmodern world, right? We think of play as that. And play is not digital anything, okay? Even though people play video games or things like that. Play is not commercially made games, and play is not with a particular purpose. And I think that that's one of the hardest things for most of us as adults, because we're culturally conditioned to have a particular purpose behind everything we do. But it's something to understand that play does not have a particular purpose. So what is play? Play is experiential. It's highly subjective, so it's based on how you're feeling and how you describe it. So the player describes that. It's mysterious. It's a bit of a paradox. But more importantly, and I think this is really what I would like for everyone to at least leave this seminar with, is that play is a state of being. So how to define play? Play is and is not what it seems to be. So sociologist Thomas S. Hendricks, he elaborates on the struggle of defining play by stating play is hard to define because it's a pathway of expression that touches on many aspects of what it means to be human. Defining play shares in the same complexities of endeavoring to describe the concept of love, religion, ritual, community, and so on. Play simply cannot be defined by a single definition, for doing so confines it and it further moves away from all that it encompasses. When people play, they realize themselves through activity in the world. And I think that that's important, because when children are playing, who are the master players, okay, it's instinctual in them. When they are playing within the play state, they realize what it is that they love, what they don't like, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. They get to sort of try things on for size. It's a laboratory. And in that play state, they realize who they are. And that's one of the most important reasons why play is so important. Play is a balancing act where people move in and out of feeling in control, exploring powers and dilemmas, capabilities and limitations, fostering a sense of agency. And I think that that's really important, because having agency in our own lives, taking on responsibility and having the freedom to be able to have choice and being responsible for that choice, that sense of freedom is really, really important for our well-being. We don't want to feel like anybody has power over us. We want to make sure that we have control and power and a sense of agency within our own lives. Play can be understood best by understanding its qualities, its characteristics, its properties, its elements, principles, and its rhetoric. Again, there's no one singular definition. Play scholars for decades have had a very difficult time being able to describe what play is. But one of the things that we can all agree on, and I think this is fairly easy to understand, is that the hallmarks of play is that it's fun and it's also frivolous. But within our adult cultural conditioning, frivolousness is something that we're sort of like, we're not really allowed to be, fun and frivolous all the time. We got to be serious and rigid and, all of those things. That's sort of kind of how we see adults when we're children, right? So again, here's my buddy, Dr. Stuart Brown, and he describes 7 play properties. He says it's purposeless. It's done for its own sake. It's voluntary. It has an inherent attraction. It's got freedom from time. So when you're in the play state, you forget about time. Diminished consciousness of self. It has improvisational potential for creativity. And it has a continuation desire. So when we were in that guided imagery exercise, when you were imagining yourself at age 7 or 8, noticing that play state, whatever it is that you were engaged in, you define it as the player. It was fun, it was frivolous, it was purposeless, it was voluntary. It had an inherent attraction. It gave you freedom from time. It had this improvisational potential and this continuation desire. So historian Dr. Scott Eberly, he describes these play elements. And he says there's anticipation, like, I'm so excited to do this. Surprise, whoa. But it's sort of kind of like, what's going to happen in this play moment? It has a feeling of pleasure. So we're touching in on joy. And then also this level of understanding, strength, and poise. And you can see underneath those 6 play elements, You can see that anticipation has this aspect of interest, openness, readiness, expectation, exuberance. In surprise, you have an awakening, an excitement, a discovery, an arousal, a thrill. With pleasure, you have satisfaction, a sense of buoyancy. Joy, delight. Understanding has tolerance and empathy, skill, insight, mutuality. Strength, vitality, ingenuity, drive, passion. And then poise, dignity, grace, ease, fulfillment, spontaneity. Another buddy of mine, and him and I and Dr. Stuart Brown were in a documentary film called Play. I'm trying to remember the title of it, but it was a documentary that I had the honor of filming with Robert Redford's son. And I'm going to see if we can actually provide a link and a password so that the SDGKU staff and faculty and students can have access to this documentary. It's about an hour long. So Peter Gray is an evolutionary psychologist. He studied hunter-gatherer groups in the wild. And he describes play as self-chosen and self-directed. It's an activity which means are more valued than the end. So, it's the experience of play is more important than focusing on, what it's going to yield. And then play is guided by also mental rules. So when you see children playing on the playground and they say, hey, let's play Zombieland is going to jump into, the lava. They create this sort of play space, again, a laboratory, but within that, they're developing rules of the game. So that brings in that mutuality, that brings in that strength and the poise, the excitement, the wonder. So all of these sort of play elements that really fosters our sense of well-being. Play is imaginative, non-literal, it's mentally removed in some way from real or serious. It's in the liminal space. So it's not within the sort of this real or non-real world. It's very real, but it's protected in this sacred space or a laboratory where we get to imagine however we want to be and also try things on for sight. Play is conducted in an alert, active, but non-stressed frame of mind. And so the focus of play, it's on the means, not on what it yields. So as adults, we tend to think, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing because it's going to, I'm going to go exercise because I want to burn calories. Well, I hate to say it, but that's not play. Even though we've been culturally conditioned to think that exercise or, organized sports is some form of play, when we think about sports, we're thinking about winning or losing. And then again, now we're moving further away from play because remember, play is purposeless. But one thing to really hold on to and have a lot of hope around is that play is always going to yield something for the player. But in order to be able to find that out, one must be engaged fully in play. And it can't really be robbed by us saying, oh, well, it's going to be for, burning calories and it's going to be for my development. And, it's just, all around just good for me and I need to play. No, it's purposeless. But it'll always yield something. So what is joy? Well, we can see that basic affect of joy in the face. The eyes are, shining. The face is light. There's a smile on the face. And that basic affect of joy makes us feel a sense of trust, social connection, and it, it's just something that makes us feel good. So Sylvan Tompkins, he developed affect theory, which organizes affects into discrete categories and to typify their physiological, social, interpersonal, and internalized manifestations. Affects are natural biological responses to neural firing. So our neurons in our brain are firing, and it results in a specific feeling, body and facial expression, and skin changes. Feelings are an awareness of an affect, and emotions, the Latin term for emover, which means to move. Emotions are feeling states that are influenced by memories of prior similar feelings. Oh, that makes me feel that makes me feel happy because I remember that one time when I went to the concert, oh, it was the greatest experience of my life. So that's more of an emotion. It's attached, the feeling attached with a memory. So affects, think of it this way. Affects are biology. Feelings are psychology. And emotions are biography. So let's talk a little bit about affect theory pretty quickly. Affect qualities are either inherently rewarding, they're neutral, or they're inherently punishing. Again, affects are neurons that are firing in the brain that give us a physiological response. Affects amplify an experience while communicating a sense of urgency to act. So let me emphasize this. Affects are there for our survival. And we have 9 basic affects. And what are they? They're enjoyment, joy, that's inherently rewarding. Interest, excitement, that is neutral. That's also inherently rewarding. Surprise or startle, and you can see that in a baby when they get, startled. That's a neutral affect quality. We have dismal, anger or rage, fear or terror, disgust, distress to anguish, and then we have shame. The rest of those that I described are inherently punishing affects. If we think about if there's, a dog that's about to come and attack us, okay, and we think about, oh my gosh, my neurons are firing in my brain where I'm afraid, right? So it's amplifying the experience from a physiological standpoint, and it's an inherently punishing affect. So it's basic, so means that it's there for your survival. So what are you going to do? You're going to go into survival mode, and you're either going to punch the dog, you're going to run away from the dog, or you're going to play dead and hope that the dog doesn't bite you. So that's the flight, or freeze fawn state. And I think it's really important that enjoyment, joy, is one of the basic affects, something to pay attention to. Again, we have 9 basic affects. We all share them. It's basic to all human beings. So the affect of enjoyment, joy, it's inherently rewarding again. It's restorative. And it fosters our sense of well-being. It nurtures social connection. Dr. Jacques Pansep, he developed affective neuroscience, which is a field that studies neural mechanisms of emotion. So what's happening in the brain when we experience emotions. And he identified 7 primary process emotional state systems, which is base of brain. So that means that it's for our survival. Within all mammals, located deep within the subcortical region of the brain, and that's just a fancy way, is deep within the base of the brain, are these 7 emotional primary processes, which is seeking, rage, fear, lust, grief, care, and play. He actually identified that play is part of the base of our brain. It's a primary emotional system. And so therefore, by default, play is essential for us to learn how to survive. And if we go back to what we talked about with Thomas S. Hendricks, a sociologist, who said, it allows us to explore our capabilities and limitations. It allows us to try things on for size, certain behaviors. It's a laboratory within this liminal space where we get to experience certain emotions and, interactions that prevent us from having to experience it sort of in the real world with the potentials of negative repercussions. So mammalian primary motion system, again, by Dr. Jack Panksepp, and I'm just kind of putting up here, and this is something that you can review later when we provide access to the PowerPoint and to the recording. Seeking is that motivation expectancy system. Rage, that's basic. You know, we can all identify the rage, you know, in people's faces and body language. Fear is also kind of like an anxiety feeling. Lust is a part of our sexuality. Care, which is that nurturance. We need a trusting caregiver that can take care of a baby for survival. We need that nurturance. Panic, which is that separation. And then play, which Jacques Panksepp, says that, play allows us to experience a sense of joy as well. And then it talks about key brain areas where all those emotional systems, those 7 emotional systems are located. And then also it talks about key neuromodulators. Primary process emotional systems, again, this is a really cool image. I think you've seen it before in one of my first seminars, but again, base of brain, do you see that there? It's primary, meaning it's for survival. We have play, panic, fear, rage, care, lust, seeking. So when children are safe and they're fed, and when they're feeling good, they're not sick, they have a basic drive to play. They get up in the morning and the first thing they want to do is play. And that is the sign of a healthy child. So why does play matter? So our postmodern Western cultural view on play is it's considered non-essential. Play is an elective human luxury. And play is not valued throughout the lifespan. We only see it as something that children do. And our cultural norms say, it's okay for children to play, but as adults, we need to go exercise, we need to go do yoga, we need to go do things that yield results. But, never do we say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to go play. Children are so easeful about it. They get on the playground and they say, hey, do you want to play? Or you want to be friends? They're so quick about sort of what their focus is. And in particular, it's always encompassed in the state of play. So there's a lot that we can learn through children. And as adults, everything we do must yield productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency. And that is a recipe for burnout. I think we're all feeling burnout in various states in our life, in our phases. And so again, productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency is really what our postmodern Western cultural view focuses on, at least for adults. So now let's talk a little bit about play deprivation. So since the 1950s, play in the US and other developing nations has been found to be declining sharply. I don't know about you, but when I see a playground and I don't see children, it makes me sad. When I see children playing on the playground, it gives me hope. Only since the mid-20th century has free play been studied with reliable data that supports play as a function of psychological well-being for children. Through the rise of agriculture and the Industrial Revolution, children's opportunities for free play has been continuously declining, threatening their psychological, cognitive, emotional, physical, intuitive, and imaginative development. My buddy, Dr. Peter Gray, highlights free play as nature's way of facilitating children's discovery of what they love, where they learn to create their own activities, resolve their own problems, and nurture social connections through making friends. Simply put, free play is how children learn to live life and thrive in the world. As a result, rates over the past 50 years of stress-related mental disorders such as anxiety, depression, and narcissism in young people have risen steeply. This rise in stress-related mental disorders were captured by standardized questionnaires developed by psychologists and psychiatrists to assess mental problems and disorders, and have been used with large sample size of young people for several decades. So contributing factors to play deprivation According to Stuart Brown, playtime outside has decreased by 71% in one generation in both the US and the UK. Dr. Peter Gray states that there's 6 influencing factors are the rise in seductive qualities of television, the rise in the use of smartphone usage, computer games, technology, and internet activities. Children are spending more time engaged in their schooling, so there's a lot of focus on children performing academically, a lot of pressure. And Peter Gray wrote this exceptional book that really talks about that children learn through the play state. And when learning is not fun and playful, we're moving away from their very nature. An increase in adult-directed school activities, an increase in length of children's school days and school year, and a reduction in recess time. So again, focusing on academic performance for children. So consequences of play deprivation, Dr. Peter Gray highlights the dangers of the rapid decline in play among children as contributing factors to the steep rise in psychopathology of our youth. Issues such as depression, anxiety, feelings of helplessness, suicide, and narcissism have been seen to increase severely in children, adolescents, and even young adults who have identified with feeling play deprived. And again, this is a study, a longitudinal study that was done by a professor at San Diego State. And the consequences of play deprivation within Dr. Stuart Brown's research of mass murderers in the 1960s revealed an association with play deprivation during childhood, which hampers the development of empathy and responsiveness, influencing difficulty in controlling violent impulses later on in life. And so something that I'd like you to think about here is the difference between reacting and responding. It's a quality that is important for children to develop because all of us at the base of our brain can react. But it takes a higher functioning brain to imagine another way to respond. And that gives us a sense of agency. And that sense of agency gives us a sense of well-being. And we know that reactivity can be quite what's the word I'm looking for? It could be destructive. You know, somebody who's enraged, who comes into a space and wants to destroy and doesn't know how to respond, has the potential to destroy human life. So let's talk about D.W. Winnicott. He's a psychoanalyst and a pediatrician, and he talks about this transitional phenomenon. It's the play space, where the play space resides within the transitional phenomenon. The transitional space, or third part of life, is an intermediate field of experiencing or resting place. Again, the play state is a third part of life. It's an intermediate field of experiencing or resting place between one's inner reality and external world, between subjective and objective, between social and personal, between construction and reality. And it is the place where the dance between maintaining these realities separate as well as interconnected occurs. So it's a laboratory. It's sort of not the real world. It's that liminal space that he calls the transitional phenomenon. And he says, to fully engage in play, we must feel a sense of relaxation that can only come through trust. So it's the culture of trust that we create that allows us to feel relaxed, trust the space, and play with that other player, right? And then as we're playing with that other player, we learn whether or not that player knows how to play by the rules or is cheating. So, you know, these are ways that we can sort of try things on for size in terms of our behaviors, learn what it is that we love, and explore our capabilities and limitations. He says, D.W. Winnicott says, it is in playing and only in playing that the individual, child or adult, is able to be creative and to use the whole personality. And it is only in being creative that the individual discovers the self. And the self is different than our social identity. You know, I'm a nurse, I'm a psychologist, I'm a counselor. I mean, that's a social identity of mine, a professional identity. But who I am truly, what it is that I love, what makes me Caroline. So play fosters pro-social brains. This has been proven through affective neuroscience with Dr. Jacques Panksepp's research, also through Dr. Stuart Brown's research, and even the evolutionary psychologist, Dr. Peter Gray as well. It's important that we play because it fosters that sense of pro-social experience. Play nurtures the imagination. So imagination is super important, but why is it important? So what is imagination? It's the faculty of or action of forming new ideas or images or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. Winnicott presents the imagination as related to a dream and reality. The imagination is the means by which we reach out and connect with otherness. Otherness is a dangerous thing. When we other somebody, then we sort of put them further away from our humanity. We stop seeing that person when we other them. We see them as less than human. Our imagination allows us to connect with otherness. Different than fantasy. Fantasy walls us off in an inner reality, in our own world, and prevents us from connecting with otherness. An enlivened imagination is vital for healthy human development and essential for compassionate, ethical, and sustainable world. And the imagination is the most important capacity, in my own biased view, that we possess, the deepest voice of the soul, in which can only be heard through care, attention, and placing us in direct relationship with our deepest self and who we are. And our imagination is unique to us. That's so fascinating. So a little bit of Dr. Joseph Chilton Pearce. I love his work. He says that the imagination is at its core the groundwork for all higher states of learning and intellectual life, and serves as the foundation of all potential symbolic and metaphoric thought in all that is considered higher education. The imagination nurtures resiliency, flexibility, endurance, patience, and responsiveness. And my daughter, she's 4.5 years old, and I'm trying to teach her patience, right? And she's a little bit in this sort of competitive state where she always wants to win. And so, I kind of flip it back to her and say, well, the one who's most patient wins. And I'll say to her, well, I'm going to win. And she'll say, no, I'm going to win. I say, okay, well, I want to see if you're going to be patient, because the one that is most patient, don't you think that the person, I'm just, kind of throwing this out there for the group, but think about that for a second. When we're impatient, it increases stress, right? But when we're more patient, it makes us feel like we're winning in a lot of ways. Patience is an important skill set that I think that with our ability to have access to buying things on Amazon and getting information and access to information right away, and that I would say that virtue of patience is sort of starting to dwindle, at least in my own biased view. A child with an imagination does not resort to violence, but rather when faced with direct sensory input that is in any way threatening or demeaning, the child with an imagination will have endless alternate scenarios within that they can play out, which they know will have an effect on their external world. Whereas the child without imagination is subject to the instant real time of direct sensory input, again, those are affects, that is reactive and seeks to cut off the source of input. We know that reactivity can be destructive. The child with imagination can moderate or modulate these lower immediate survival defenses of rage, fear, shame, those inherently punishing affects, okay? Those survival defense mechanisms, and engage with the higher imaginative ones that go on to the neocortical structure by which we can moderate to the lower. So a person who has had a nice foundation, a child of a play experience will have access to the higher forms of thinking, access to imagination, and be able to imagine other ways of responding to direct sensory input that is threatening or demeaning in any way to them. And if that's not a skill set, I don't know what is. So what play yields, again, it's purposeless, but what I've found in my research is that play evokes joy, the basic affect of joy. It inspires a sense of freedom. It promotes a sense of agency. Again, very important for our well-being. It promotes physical, emotional, and psychological well-being. It fosters empathy. So we have mirror neurons. And when we realize that when we're engaging in body and movement play and we're in rough and tumble play and we're wrestling, if we accidentally harm the other player, then we realize, oh my gosh, I have the power to potentially harm. And that's the moment where we say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And that's where empathy is built. So rough and tumble play is actually an important part of the building of empathy for children. It's a pathway of promoting realization of the self. It's fun, and it promotes the exploration of limitations and capabilities. So what is well-being then? I think it's really important that if we're describing well-being, it's the balance. So first of all, it's been difficult to sort of find for many researchers what an actual definition of well-being is, but I was able to locate this article that provided sort of this really good definition of the balance between an individual's resource pool and the challenges faced. So you see within this resource pool, right in the middle is well-being, and then we have resources, which are psychological, social, and physical, and then we have challenges on the other side, and it's sort of a seesaw there, again, with social, psychological, and physical challenges. And so stable well-being is when individuals have the psychological, social, and physical resources they need to meet a particular psychological, social, and or physical challenge. When individuals have more challenges and resources, the seesaw dips along with their well-being and vice versa. And well-being is not a beach you go and lie on and, sit on a hammock and drink a Corona. It's sort of a dynamic dance. And there's movement in that all the time. And actually, it's the functionality of that movement, which is true levels of well-being. So that sort of dance and that movement in between that seesaw, everything that is alive moves. So success. The definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. But I ask you, how do you define success in your life? I know that the postmodern, Western worldview in a capitalist society, success is typically seen as somebody who's, money rich, maybe famous, has all the resources, the car, the house, all that. But I gotta tell you, I've met some of those people, and I've taken care of people who have had a lot of resources, and that never equated to joy or well-being or success, although it was a factor in their safety and having access to resources. Again, that well-being seesaw. Our relationships, are important for our well-being as well. Not just our relationship to others, but our relationship to ourselves. So Dr. Peter Gray says the drive to play freely is basic. It's a biological drive. Lack of free play may not kill the physical body as would lack of air, food, or water, but it kills the spirit and stunts mental growth. Stuart Brown says, by looking closely at the consequences of play deprivation and offering broad-based opportunities for remediation, promises for improved societal well-being, honoring what nature has designed into the fabric of our biology are primed for re-entry into contemporary life. So in reflection, as we finalize the seminar here and enter into putting our voice into this virtual circle, now that you have a better understanding of play from an evolutionary, biological, cultural, and contemporary context, what has been evoked within you with regards to how play and joy are connected to well-being? That is to say, what is alive for you right now? Having learned what we have been present for in this moment. And what are ways you might imagine weaving in a playful state, one in which enriches your work culture? So and I'm going to go back here, I want to stay in this moment of reflection and come back to everybody. Let's see, let me stop share. There we go. And looking at the time right now, I think it's really important that we take this moment to reflect on that question. If you could please, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of call on everyone to just put your voice in a circle. What is alive for you right now? And what are ways in which you could possibly bring a more playful state into the workplace culture that would help to foster well-being? And you know what? Any answer is okay. This is really about us getting into our imagination, creating a trusting space, and being creative. So I'm wondering if Farah, you'd like to put your voice in the circle?
Hi, Caroline. It's
Hi.
been very nice hearing what you say. I don't know. I was thinking of imagining how we could incorporate play, and I think sometimes we're in Zoom meetings like we do. I participate frequently during the week. We usually make jokes. Dr. Cárdenas has brought at times jokes that he has a list from, or I don't know where he gets them, but he shares his jokes with us and we all laugh, and it's kind of setting aside, just reflecting on something else. And I thought that was very neat. So maybe that would be a good, way of making us laugh and get our minds off of the work or what we have to do.
And I'm curious, when that state of play happens and that joke happens and comes in, how does it make you feel in the moment?
Oh, happy. We laugh and it's kind of entertaining. Yeah.
And I think we can kind of relax more into, right? When we're in that playful state, we have to feel a sense of trust, and it has to, brings us into that state of sort of relaxation.
Right.
Yeah, so it can kind of open up our hearts and our minds a bit more. So I love that. I love it. Starting off some of the meetings with a little bit of check-ins, an icebreaker, a little bit of silliness, so that then you can start talking about what needs to get done in a meeting. Thank you. Anything else, Sarah?
I do have a question actually, and this is kind of part of it. But when you say, I understand that by play with children, that they go out on the playground or backyard and play. Would you say that, say, getting together with friends and playing cards is part of the same, just for fun?
Yeah.
Is that type of play also part of what what it is? Or playing tennis just for fun, not for competitive reasons, or now that there's other, what is this new game like tennis? The word just flew off my mind, but there's a new type of tennis or game. I can't remember the name, but it's becoming very popular, that people don't really need to know, but they gather together and play. And that's the type of play we could also get engaged, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I didn't present here were the various forms of play. So there's spectator play, there's body and movement play, there's imaginative play, there's solo play, there's various forms of play. But I think something to think about here, which you sort of answered the question, which is, you thought about the play elements and properties, and you thought about, okay, well, if these two kids are, if these elements and properties are within this play moment, then they're in the play state. And one quick way of understanding that is, are they having fun, right? And is it frivolous? Is it purposeless? Is it done for its own sake? Does it have an inherent attraction, diminished consciousness of self, diminished awareness around time, improvisational potential? Do you hear laughter? Sometimes there might be a bit of fun with being a bit competitive. But one thing that I've heard some kids who are super duper pressured in sports is that they used to love, let's say, soccer, but then when they stop winning, or when the pressure's on too high, they're not having fun anymore, right? So that's, I think, something that's really important to pay attention to, that we can even burn out our children in organized sports. So having fun and it being frivolous, and having those play properties and those elements are important parts of understanding that liminal space, or that transitional phenomenon that D.W. Winnicott talks about. It's an intermediate place, right? And it's an important place. And it's not just for children who are the experts, but also for us as adults, because we never really stop developing. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Cárdenas, Senior, you're next.
Oh my God.
What is alive for you?
Oh, well, I want to say many things, but I don't want to take too much time. But first of all, I am just fascinated with your definition and how you explain imagination. I think that's the key to a successful and joyful and great organization where everyone is at its best in terms of well-being. Imagination, I think, is really what drives me, and it's not fantasy, it's imagination. You said it. That's one concept. The other is your connection of well-being to success. That definition you had there was really wonderful, and I've never seen it. It's the resources that one has on one end and the challenges, and it's a balance. But what I loved is your comment that it's not, it's not a static state. It's action. You're moving, and so that was wonderful. And then the connection between play and your spirit. I think that's crucial, because if you don't play, you don't have a spirit. You kill your spirit, and if you don't have a spirit, you can't be joyful. And we talk about the spirit as being a religious thing. It is not. It is religious, but it is also part of your life, and it's just like your body, your mind. So I think that connection is really beautiful. And so I just, want to congratulate you for bringing all these, concepts more, you provide definitions, but at the same time, explanations. I think that's what one needs. And then the question is, how can we incorporate play, in our individual lives, in our workplace? And I really want to invite everyone that is here. I really want to invite you to help, incorporate play. And I appreciate Farah's comment about my jokes, which sometimes are not very good, but I do read them. I do have a list of pre-edited jokes. But I'm going to try to get more. But if you can all help me so that we can, integrate play, I think we should be very joyful and thankful, for what we have. I mean, considering the realities of the world and the misery of, wars that we have around the world, we are really, really, so lucky and fortunate. That in itself should be a joyful, reflection. So yeah. That's the challenge. How do we incorporate more play and consequently joy into our workplace and our lives? Thank you.
Wonderful. I love it how it, the movement. So play is a state of being, We don't have to keep it separate from work or our personal lives. We can weave it in somehow into every aspect of our life. And perhaps, and it's not the central focus, right? Because play is done for its own sake, but perhaps it might yield a better quality of life and ultimately help us feel a sense of well-being and more connection with others, right? That smile on the face, again, creates that trust and that social connection, that basic affect of joy. So it is really important to create that in our work culture, is as we're seeing with the wars that are going on, there's sort of a cultural crisis happening, right? Like, and how we restore our compassion, which is what my research was about, you know, that it showed that play can help to restore compassion in adults. So imagine that. It can help to enliven a sense of empathy, and it also can enliven a sense of meaning and purpose in one's chosen vocation. So it's, you know, it's not why we do it, but it really yields all these other beautiful things, you know, in our life. So I'm wondering if maybe now, Yesenia, you could put your voice in the circle.
Yes.
What is alive for you?
Okay. I don't know if like going to the gym is part like of play. But I found like various activities that I have done. And I would have fun going. At first I would like put a wall and say like, I'm just too tired. It's already late and I wouldn't want to go. And I started going, I started having fun. Started taking my oldest son to the gym too. He wanted to go. He usually just like likes to like walk and just watch me like start doing weights. I weighed 213, and right now I'm weighing 182. So I'm having fun. I mean, just having fun. And I started getting more energy. I would take him to the park. I would go to the beach, go walk. And I mean, I have 3 kiddos, so they like to run. So playing soccer, they like playing soccer. I take them to the park and I just see them run. I run after them, and having fun, it has helped me. 6 months ago, I was pre-diabetic and anemic. My last labs came up. I'm not pre-diabetic and I'm not anemic anymore. And it's because I've been, yes. And I'm like, you know, just having fun, like not putting that wall or excuses that I'm just too tired. And no, you know, having my kids around and just seeing them like having fun, it kind of motivated me. And I didn't even see it like health wise. It was just, I was having fun, you know, I was having fun. I was playing, and started going to the gym, started getting more energy and just like going out there. So yes.
I think that's wonderful, because when you feel good, you bring that energy in everywhere you go, you know, as you wear different hats, right? As a mother, and, you know, as in working at San Diego Global Knowledge University, that energy that we bring in when we're taking care of ourselves, but more importantly, are we taking care of the fun, what brings us joy, right? Like exercise, if you're doing it for fun, then it is play. But if you're doing it for health reasons and all that, you can weave in a playful state, right? Because play is done for its own sake, but you're noticing that when you move your body and when you engage in this exercise, you can, you know, weave in that fun, you're feeling better, and just overall, you, your children, and that energy that you bring, you're noticing that it's beneficial to you and your children. Yes. So, you know, everybody wins, right? You know, you have more energy, you have more capacity to deal with and to work with whatever comes your way in that sort of more balanced seesaw that we saw when it comes to well-being. Yes. So kudos to you. Congratulations. That's hard work.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Wonderful. And then I'm wondering if maybe Wendy would like to put your voice in the circle.
Yeah, sure. play for me is a little difficult. But when I do go home, I do try to relax and listen to music. I think music's like the only thing that helps me take my mind off everything from throughout the day, like, all the work and everything. Because sometimes, there's nights where I'm dreaming that I'm here in the office. So I'm like, oh my goodness. And I wake up and I'm like, I have to go right back in. So I think music is the biggest thing for me, like dancing in the kitchen, just music throughout everything. It's the only thing I can do. Well, the only thing that helps me. Yeah.
I love it. And I that resonates with me because I love music and I love dancing. And when I am not listening to music and when I'm not dancing, I feel like I'm losing myself a little bit. I'm like, where am I? And then when I start dancing again, I'm like, oh, there I am.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And so, yeah, more of that, right, in our lives that brings us that sense of aliveness, that joy, that ecstasy, or to stand outside of oneself, ecstasy. Gives us a break from realities and all of that, and gives us this safe space to connect with what we love. And again, the player defines what is fun for them. For somebody, maybe, ice skating is fun for them. For me, it's hula hooping. I can't get enough of it, right? I love it so much. It just brings me so much joy. And it's not for me to justify either. Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Lydia, can you put your voice in the circle?
Yes. Okay. So I do want to say that I do connect to what everybody just said right now. I connect with Fire about the jokes with Dr. Cárdenas, and I frequently tell him, like, Dr. Cárdenas, tell us some jokes, And during lunch times, he comes over and he starts telling us all these kinds of jokes, and it's really fun to have him with us. And also that with Yesenia, I do connect with her about having my little one around me. She's like, she has so much energy that I need to be just going like up and down with her. It's just like, with her. But also something that I wanna refer to your presentation. Most, like, I do see it like more on our culture. You said culture on your presentation, and I do want to mention that many people in our culture, they see a barrier on between work and play, and it's like so much like you have to be like right now, like, we do have so much confidence with Dr. Cárdenas, and many people, like, I would just to say, like, in Mexico, they don't have that confidence with their with their CEOs. They cannot go ahead and tell them, like, they cannot interact with each other like as we do over here, and I do like that part about it, that engagement between everyone. And I do like that it's most like we're a family and we do see each other like that. And in our culture over there, like in Mexico, like per se where I am from, we don't do that. Like, it's like we put like some barriers between us. And I do enjoy being here around Dr. Cárdenas, and like, I do.
I think that's a beautiful point because when we're in the play state, it has to be a safe and trusting environment, right? And so I think you're speaking to a little bit about like workplace culture, right? Mm-hmm. So within certain workplace cultures, there are certain jobs where people work in that they don't trust, or they don't feel relaxed to be themselves, and I think that comes with whether or not leadership in particular values play in particular values the imagination so that employees can have the ability to bring in their creative ideas, right? And so what ends up happening is we start to create a workplace culture where there's fear to the hierarchy, and the social norms are to have fear and respect for the hierarchy. And that, I don't know if you've noticed, but I just kind of got small. You know what I'm saying? So whereas the playful state, our imagination, our creativity in a trusting place kind of allows us to feel like we can share our uniqueness and it's okay. And that is a workplace culture that is created not just by the leaders and the managers, but also it is dependent upon each and every one of us. It's not just the leadership. It literally is dependent on our how we think and how we move about in our relationships and our interactions with one another. So I think that's an important point there. And our postmodern Western culture, the social norms are to sort of be afraid of hierarchies and leadership, and be respectful and put our head down and just say yes, and but then like that doesn't allow us to feel expansive. It makes us feel contracted. Yeah. And that over time is not good for our well-being. And to me, a feeling of contraction is not the definition of success. For me, the definition of success is a feeling of expansiveness and a feeling of aliveness in a place where I can actually be myself and have a sense of agency. So thank you for sharing, Lydia. And then Dr. Rico, can you put your voice in the circle in the sake of time? We've got a couple more minutes here to share.
Yeah, thank you very much for speaking of such an important topic. I'm just thinking when we start the session, just like smiling, trying to connect with another person and having some laughter, that changes the whole environment, and then it makes us open to share, to feel connected, and to make like ideas grow. So yeah, it's very important.
Right. So that creating that, again, that workplace culture, of that it's safe to actually, be a little bit silly, bring in a little bit of fun, be a little bit frivolous, because we are going to get the work done. We know how to be serious, but can we be playful? Is the space trusting enough? And again, that's dependent upon our presence and our engagement. Because again, that, unhappy workers are like disengaged, right? So, Veronica, I'm wondering if you could put your voice in the circle. Veronica, si puedes poner tu voz en el circle aquí.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like Jasenia, and when they're because all my time I was spending with my kids, and
we're only able to see your eyes. I'm wondering if we can see.
Sorry.
There you are. There you are.
Sorry. My camera.
There you are.
Sorry. Yeah, they were playing baseball, and I was like, while they were in practice, I used to go walk, and then when they were in their turn, to hit the ball or something, I would just stop and then I just look at them, and they were so that way I spend my mind with them.
So for some reason the mic is not picking up your voice, but I am hearing you on somebody else's mic. Originally we could hear you, but then right when you moved the camera, your mic kind of turned off. You're not muted, but
no, I'm not muted.
Yeah, and we can hear you a little bit more now that you amplified your voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then when we're in the car, we start singing.
There we go.
Yeah, but that's.
And I think it's important to pay attention to the fact that that silliness is important.
Yeah.
It gives us a little bit of time and space from the seriousness of life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like silly people, you know, I want to be around those people, you know, they make me feel good, you know, they make me laugh, and that's important. Yeah.
Or I start singing and I tell my little song, like, now is your turn to sing.
Yeah. So everybody taking turns to be silly is really important. Devin, I'm wondering if you can put your voice in the circle.
I think she was on a call.
On a call, okay. Or Ilian, si quieres poner tu voz.
Ilian, she can hardly talk because she has COVID or had COVID. Yeah, so I think we will probably give her a break.
No problem. Any other questions? Any burning? Oh, there's Devin.
Devin is back. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah.
So sorry, guys. I've been in and out.
Yeah, as always.
On Monday, so I do apologize. Yeah. But I caught bits and pieces, and I hope that this is actually recording that we can get access to, because it's really important. I think I related to a lot of key points that you had mentioned, and I think that your method of understanding and teaching is really encouraging, and I definitely would hope that I could see you as a mentor one day, because it's really, really important to continue to engage and to remember the side of play that you've mentioned, as well as the studies that go behind it, and the learning of why. I really appreciate all of the additional guidance. I'm always like taking notes, like key things that I can come back to, and even sometimes as like morning affirmation sometimes. So yeah, I do appreciate you though.
Love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, and Devin and her sister actually were in a commercial that we did on play. Yeah, for I think it was a different another university. And we can share that link as well. And that was a lot of fun. But one thing that I do want to say in all of this that I'm reminded of when, Devin put her voice in the circle is that play is experiential. It's not just a state, it's experiential. So we can think about it conceptually, we can think about it theoretically, we can understand it from sort of the brain perspective and that logic, but we don't want to forget the rest of the body, and we want to engage our whole self, and that requires us to step into the dance of the play state and the potentials that it can offer, not just from our individual, personal, and professional experiences, but also from a collective standpoint. That play really benefits the whole, and it is part of who we are. It's not just something out there that people do sometimes or just in childhood. And I'm very much a champion about playing or remaining in that play state throughout your entire life, from birth to death. That it's just not a certain phase or time in our lives. And, sometimes it's hard to kind of rev up the engine to go play because we're tired, or because we have responsibilities, or because we're going through something hard. But I guarantee you the hardest part is getting to that play moment. And then once we engage in it, we realize how good it was for us. So when we can create more of a playful workplace culture, I think that has the potential for something really good. So I really encourage that, not just in your personal life, but in your professional life as well. And I just want to thank you all for your attention, your engagement. You can always reach out to me for any questions.
Can we give all a little applause, please? Caroline.
And then I do want to share that documentary with all of you. So I'll be providing the link and the password if it still works, so that you can all, take a look at it, because it's also backed by science. So, yeah.
Thank you. It was very instructional, or how do you say it? Makes at least you never think that play would be such an important part of our lives, and how important it is. Because you always think, or I would think before your session, that play was something of, like you mentioned, part of just the kids thing.
Yeah, it's interesting how we see it from a postmodern, Western culturally conditioned view. And it's like, well, whose idea was that? Is that my idea, or is that a culturally conditioned idea? And now that we know that play is a primary emotional process, part of the base of the brain for our survival, and that it evokes joy, and joy is a basic aspect, important for our well-being and our social connections and pro-social brain, then we can sort of kind of say, oh, okay, then it's okay for me to do that because it's good for me. It's good for everybody. Well, on that note, thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Caroline. Caroline, may I
you.
also thank all of the participants, all of your loving comments, and I truly appreciate all of you. We are a family, as Lydia said, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you all. Thank you all. And Caroline, for bringing the best of us in that regard. And let's keep strengthening. Again, our challenge is how to increase play in our workplace, in our lives. All right? That's the challenge. Thank you. Thank you once again to everyone. This was a great seminar. Thanks to your participation. Thank you all.
San Diego Global Knowledge University, Education Beyond Boundaries.